maybe 5 minutes into this, and I have some good news, which is I don't have to pull these panels up, which is a major pain in the ass. And actually, I may need to get in the top here, and if I do, then that means I do have to take this panel off. Ah, shit. That'd be a disaster. What could possibly go wrong there? After looking at everything that I've got here, I realized that I'm gonna need like $300 to $400 more worth of wires, fuses, bus bars, all that kind of thing. So I ordered that stuff. I got some of it in enough to where I'm gonna actually start tearing apart some of this stuff over here, and I think I can fit most of this stuff in there and even get most of it wired. There may be a few things that I have to just add in once I get the few final components that I'm waiting for. And the main one, it will be the wire for the DC to DC charger. It has to run from the battery up front all the way to the back. That'll probably be the last thing I do because I'm waiting on that wire, and that'll take the longest. But everything else I think I can get in here and wired for the most part. One of the things that I'm going to do is make sure that I put the wire in the correct sizing this time, because I didn't pay too much attention to it last time. So some of the wiring in there I know is maybe not as big as it should be. One of those is the wiring coming from my solar panels, and so what I have to do first is come in here, like before I even tear into this stuff, is I'm going to have to come in, because these wires that come into the solar panel are here. These are like 12 gauge, and then they actually go into, I think, an even smaller gauge wire to where I have this fuse attached. And these come up and they come through this outlet on the ceiling right up there. And so the problem is that at some point they tap into the wiring from the solar panels, but I don't know where. So they come out on this little junction right here. This whole big bundle of wires. This is filled with wires for, like, for example, all the lights that I have up here, the cameras, all this stuff. There's just a ton of wires, plus the solar panel wires. So all that stuff I routed through the ceiling, and now I'm gonna have to tear that out and figure out where that wire is for the solar panels that I tapped into. So I wish I would have notated this so I knew. So, like, it could be any one of these wires. And if the wiring is spliced back up here somewhere, then I have to pull this out, run the new, a heavier gauge wire, and run it back through here, put more sealant in, and all that kind of stuff. So that could be a big job. So because these solar panels have to come off in order to actually get into this kind of stuff before I, like this is kind of a big time-consuming process. But that has to be done. So I'm going to pull these things out, figure out where that wire is, boost up that wire so it's the equivalent of 10 gauge or more. I'm probably just going to use two 14 gauge wires, and then route it back out here again. And this time, instead of having just this smaller 12 gauge wire, I'll have wire big enough to handle all of the volts and amps that are coming out of these panels. So just in case that's an issue, it won't be an issue anymore. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Okay, so maybe 5 minutes into this, and I have some good news, which is I don't have to pull these panels up, which is a major pain in the ass, because you're talking like there's bolts way in the back on both sides that are darn near impossible to get to, and then there's all this stuff over here. So pulled the wiring out and traced it back, and I was able to find the wires that I'm looking for, which is these two. These are from the panels themselves. These are 10 gauge, and I spliced in right here. And this looks like it, according to this sleeve, this looks like 10 gauge right here, but there's actually 2 wires inside of here. And according to this, it is, where did I see it? I think it said it was 16 gauge. So that could be a problem. I mean, that could be limiting the power that I'm getting out of these panels. So there's enough wire right here that I can cut this off, attach new wiring here, feed it back. The only bad thing is that I have to pull all these wires out of here. I have to pull the silicone out of there, and actually I may need to get in the top here, and if I do, then that means I do have to take this panel off. Ah, shit, that'd be a disaster. Well, I may have to take the panel off, but at least I got the wiring identified, and I can replace that, and then I'm going to route it back through here, seal that back up, and then this part will be done, and I can continue on the inside. This is the wire right here, but removing this isn't so much the issue. I could just put new wires in there. The problem is, how would I get them in there? How would I even get all these wires and just filled with silicone? I don't know how to get that stuff out of there without destroying that thing. I don't know how far back the silicone went when I pumped it in there. I don't even recall if I put silicone inside the box there before I closed the lid up. So this is going to take some work and some thought. So I'm going to see if I can play around with it and somehow make room to get a new wire in there, which I don't know how I could do that. Maybe I don't know, maybe I can figure something out. If I can fish some wire in there and then have it come out through the roof without having to do too much disassembly of all this stuff, then that would be ideal, obviously. But this is one of those things I was hoping I would never ever have to do as I was sealing it up the first time when I built it. So we'll have to, I don't know, we'll just play around and see what I can come up with. Alright, so I got the panels lifted up, these 2 sides, everything except that back corner, which is super difficult to get to. But this is, I think, enough, just lifting it up this much. I've got the cap off of this, and I can see that, so there's no silicone in there. So I might be able to get the wires through somehow, and then down in there. I think it'll be a lot easier than I thought. So this is good news. So I'm gonna get the wires, see if I can get something to stick through this end down here and push the silicone out and make room for new wires, and then I should just be able to shove those right down through that hole and not have to do too much else. So yeah, let me try and work with that and see how far I can get. I have a light inside here in the van, and so this light shining through the hole here, that's coming from a light sitting on top of the refrigerator shining up into the hole. So that tells me there's plenty of room to put the wires that I want through there. The only thing I need to do is figure out how to get them through this side over here, because it feels like it's a tighter fit. Actually, there's some room in there. I can feel there's plenty of room. It's just all this silicone. So I'm going to try and find something that I can shove in from this side and push some of the silicone out and make a little channel or some room so I can fish those wires. I may have to fish them this way, but either way it doesn't matter. I think there's plenty of room. It's just I got to get something to get some of the silicone out there to make room for them to fit. Okay, so I've been using this screwdriver to try and poke through this silicone sealant, and I've made it through all the way to the other side, but it doesn't really, I feel like the gap closes back up as soon as I take it out, so I can't really fish a wire through there, and I've got to fish all of these wires through there. And so what I've decided I'm going to do is I found this file in my toolbox, so I went ahead and hooked it up to my drill because, you know, what could possibly go wrong there? And then this thing is thicker than the screwdriver, and the drill action will help file some of that stuff out, and hopefully it'll make like more of a permanent hole through that silicone, at least. I mean, because that's the only thing that's holding me back, and so that way I can have room to fish those wires through there. So hopefully that works. Everything is put back together. All the bolts that I took down are back up. This thing is sealed up. All the wiring is in there. All the wiring has been put back in place, or at least as good as it's going to get. And so the solar panel wires, the wires that come with the solar panel are 10 gauge, and so I tapped into 2 of those. And I also realized that these panels are wired in parallel. For some reason I thought I had them wired in series, but they are positive to positive. So all the more reason that I should have upgraded the wiring, or make sure that I have the wiring correct, which what I have underneath here. So these are 14 gauge wires because I don't have any 10 gauge. That's the one wire that I did not order. So instead I used 3 sections of 14 gauge, all the same length, and that'll give me even more capacity than a 10 gauge wire would give me. So those have plenty of capacity to not create too much resistance. They'll never overheat or anything like that. I did manage to throw this charge controller in here, just because it's only a couple screws, and then just put these things in. I did not upgrade the wiring to the battery yet. I have wiring for this. I think I got the 4 gauge, so that'll go for the negative and positive to the battery. I've got to order another fuse with the proper wire attached to it so I can put the fuse in there. But for right now, this will be fine. And I don't think I can mount this the proper way. It's mounted sideways right now. They want it mounted vertically. But anyways, it'll be okay. And let's see, change the wiring to that. But to do that, I have to pull all this stuff out. And I don't want to do that now because it's like I thought. This wiring and stuff took most of the day, and so maybe I can get to that tomorrow. Basically take this off, disassemble this top shelf, take the inverter out, disassemble this shelf, take this out, and then I'll have access to the batteries. I can take all the cables off the batteries. I also have one of these things going on up here, so I can cut the power to the battery. Actually, most of the positive wires are going into this. I have some bus bars, clean all that up. I don't know where those will end up going. Once I get all that stuff out, then I can get the wiring for this set up, ran to a bus bar, and I can just go ahead and put in, the new inverter, pull this out. It might have to fit over here or something. I don't know if it'll actually fit right here. And then I can basically start wrapping all this stuff up. And I'm gonna have to rearrange stuff. I don't know how it's going to fit, but it's probably going to be the same way that I built this last time. Is it just going to throw stuff in there and start screwing pieces of wood together to make it fit around the components, because that's the easiest way to do it when you're working with limited space. So this did not improve my charging, I don't think. It may have a little bit, but this has its own Bluetooth readout, which is different from my battery monitor, and they're both giving me kind of different readings. So I don't know why that is. And this one, either way, this one's not putting out, anywhere near the amount of watts that I should be getting from two 300 watt panels. It also thinks my batteries are like 14.2%, but they're not. I'm like got 13.2%. So that may cause it to go into an absorption mode, but I have to take some time to figure out why all that's happening, because that was the main reason I bought this thing, was to try, and I thought maybe this was the bottleneck causing me not to get full power from my solar panels, but maybe it's not. So I'll have to keep troubleshooting on that, and hopefully I can get some time tomorrow, and if I do, I should be able to, this stuff should go pretty quick.